You know, there's this invisible world all around us, operating under immense force. Inside industrial plants, you've got vessels and pipes holding back pressures that could literally level a building if they were ever unleashed. So keeping that power safely locked down, that's one of the biggest challenges in all of modern engineering. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the actual playbook that makes it happen.
And hey, this isn't just some textbook theory. We are diving into the real-deal safety playbook used by one of the biggest energy companies on the planet. This document right here, SAES-D-008, is their Bible for taking care of equipment that has to live and work under just incredible pressure.
And that really raises a fascinating question, right? How exactly do you go about fixing something that's designed to contain that much force? I mean, you can't just slap a patch on it and call it a day. The whole process is this high-stakes dance of science, strict procedure, and absolute pinpoint precision.
All right, so to really get how this all works, we're just going to follow their roadmap. We'll start with the playbook itself, then we'll learn the lingo, the 3 R's, and meet the people who make the calls. After that, we'll look at the hands-on work, see how they test everything, and wrap up with that all-important final stamp of approval.
So, our first stop is the standard itself. This is the document that makes sure all that pressure stays exactly where it's supposed to. So, this is it, SAES-D-008. Its whole purpose is to cover what the document calls process equipment. We're talking the big stuff, the heavy-duty pressure vessels, heat exchangers, and boilers that are really the heart of any industrial facility. And this standard, it dictates everything, from the math and the materials to the welding and the final tests. Now, to get your head around this world, you have to speak the language. And in this world, words have very specific, very important meanings. You absolutely have to know if what you're doing is a repair, an alteration, or a re-rate, because the rules for each one are totally different.
Okay, first up is repair. The magic word here is restore. According to Section 4 of the standard, a repair isn't just a fix. It's about bringing the equipment back to exactly how it was originally designed to be. No changes, no deviations, period.
Then you've got alteration, which is pretty much the total opposite. And alteration fundamentally changes the equipment. Let's say you're adding a new nozzle where there wasn't one before. Well, that's a change that goes way beyond the original blueprint, and you better believe it triggers a whole different set of rules.
And finally, there's re-rating. Now this one's a non-physical change. You're not actually cutting or welding anything. Instead, you're officially changing the equipment's performance limits. The standard points out this is often done to account for something like corrosion. Basically, as the metal walls get a little thinner over many years, you might lower the maximum pressure it's allowed to handle, just to keep things safe.
So let's just boil this down, right? A repair restores. An alteration or a re-rating changes. And this distinction, it's not just semantics. It determines the entire journey of paperwork, approvals, and testing that has to follow. Getting this wrong, not an option.
Okay, so this brings us to the people. Because, you know, a rule book is just paper without the folks who actually enforce it. So who's in charge here? Who makes the call?
Well, Section 5 lays out this really clear system of checks and balances. It starts with the Plant Inspection Authority. They set the whole safety framework. Then, a qualified contractor does the actual hands-on work, but they are not working alone. You've got a certified inspector on the ground, double-checking every single step. And for the really critical jobs, a senior engineer has to give that final green light. It's a chain of command where every single link is crucial.
All right, now let's get our hands dirty, metaphorically, of course. Let's see how all these rules translate into action, into the real physical work of shaping metal. This is the science of fabrication. It's forging with fire, but guided by a set of rules that are as solid as steel. So looking at sections 11 and 12, you see the process is just incredibly meticulous. First, metal is formed into the right shape, with super precise rules about heat to make sure it keeps its strength. Then comes the welding, which has to follow a pre-approved recipe called a Welding Procedure Specification, or WPS. After welding comes a really critical step, post-weld heat treatment. The metal is carefully heated up and cooled down to get rid of stresses that built up during welding. And finally, it gets examined for any hidden flaws.
And here's a perfect example of just how specific and frankly how critical these rules are. Section 12 says that if a piece of equipment is going to handle certain corrosive materials, like caustic soda, or if it's in what's called hydrogen service, where hydrogen can actually make steel brittle, that post-weld heat treatment we just talked about, it's not optional. It is absolutely mandatory. And why is that? Because without it, Leftover stress in the weld could cause it to crack and fail catastrophically when it's put into service.
So all this work, the design, the approvals, the careful fabrication, it all leads up to this moment. It's time for the ultimate final exam, the part where you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the work you did is safe.
So, think about it. How in the world do you inspect a solid chunk of steel for tiny, hidden flaws that could cause a total disaster under pressure? You can't just look at it, right?
The answer is something called non-destructive examination, or NDE. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like medical imaging, but for metal. Section 13 lists a few different kinds. You've got radiography, which is basically an X-ray that can see defects deep inside the weld. Ultrasonic testing uses sound waves to find flaws. Then there are things like magnetic particle tests, which are great for finding tiny surface cracks in steel.
Now, after passing all of those NDE scans, the equipment faces its biggest test of all, the hydrostatic test. What they do is fill the vessel with water. They use water because it's safe and doesn't compress, and then they crank up the pressure to 1.3 times its maximum allowable working pressure. That's a built-in 30% safety margin. It's the ultimate proof that it can handle way more than it will ever have to in the real world. But you know what? Even after passing that insane pressure test, the job still isn't done. The final step is all about creating a permanent record. It's the official stamp of approval.
And this is it. This form, pulled right from Appendix A of the standard, is the grand finale. Every single calculation, every material that was used, every inspection, every test result, it all gets documented right here. This becomes a permanent part of the equipment's life story, ensuring that for its entire life, there's a clear, traceable record of everything that's ever been done to it.
And the whole thing culminates in this one simple but incredibly powerful declaration, the Statement of Compliance. The people who sign this form, they are putting their names, their careers, and the reputations on the line, certifying that every single rule in this entire playbook was followed to the letter. And it really leaves you with a final thought. In a world of such immense pressure, maybe the greatest weight of all is the responsibility that comes with a single signature on a piece of paper.
If you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, How to Do It. Search for us at How to Do 5 for even more interesting content.